Chris Lee and Blake Lovell of Southeastern 14, presented by Steaks. We are previewing Texas A&M's trip to Alabama. That game kicks off at 8 Eastern. Blake, how the mighty games have fallen. Before the season, this was the SEC game everybody had circled. Things have changed. Alabama is about a 23.5-point favorite in this one, even though we're not sure Alabama's going to have Bryce Young. That's changed since last week. What is going on here?
Well, I mean, it's I think people have watched A&M's. I think they've watched A&M, and I think you look at it offensively, right? It's the same things we talked about. It's just we had questions about the passing game coming in the season. Lose one of your top playmakers in Smith, and you kind of have the performance you had last week against Mississippi State, where I think the thing is, like, if you look back at that game for A&M against Mississippi State last week, they had some opportunity, like they had some chances, didn't they? Just I think they fumbled. What was it? It's a couple fumbles, like within scoring distance in terms of. I'll find the numbers here in just a minute, but so it's not like they weren't kind of in those positions to make those plays, but I think that's the issue. Is we look at what Alabama did on the road against Arkansas, even without Bryce Young, and you're like, okay, the offense is not going to be the exact same, but may not miss a beat to the point you think it would. Now, the difference, I think, is A&M's a better defensive team than Arkansas is, at least from what we've seen to this point. So can A&M do some things to challenge, Milroe, if we are assuming he's going to be the guy under center? That's maybe the question you look at, but that's why things have changed, is because like we said, Chris, like it or not, it's just the expectations and kind of where things are now. It's a big game still for Alabama fans, because you can bet they're not going to let Jimbo forget anything that he said this summer, and still a big game for A&M too. So we'll see, but yeah, in terms of where that point spread would have been, we would have probably set it at much lower, a month ago.
Okay, when Alabama's got the ball, we are going to assume that Jalen Milroe is the quarterback. I've been doing a little research on AC sprains, and that sounds to me like a 2 to 6 week injury. I don't know the severity of Bryce Young's. We're not doctors. We do not play doctors on YouTube. But just you can look it up yourself. Milroe played the second half of that game, had a 70-something yard run. My concern for A&M's defense, and A&M's had a good defense, but Mississippi State, not exactly what you think of as a running team. Ran the ball with a lot of success against State last week. Gibbs had a breakout game as a runner last week. A&M's strength is its pass defense. I think Alabama, though, Blake, could go more run heavy. Alabama's averaging, 7.4 yards a rush this year, and if you take sacks out of that, it's better than that. A&M giving up almost 4.5 a carry. Sacks are included in that, so once you adjust, the number's a little different. But it's weird. Like if you're Alabama, you want to have Bryce Young, but I wonder if Milroe playing. And I don't really think this, right? But based on what you saw a week ago, what you see on him as a runner, this isn't maybe the break that you would think you were getting as much with Young not playing. If he doesn't play, I don't know if that makes sense. But my point is, maybe Alabama's a better running team if Milroe's in there. And I think based on what you saw out of both teams last week, you would think Alabama will be able to run the ball in this one.
I would think so, because again, like you said, what we've seen that suggests that will happen. And I mean, it's just we talked about it, right? Whether it's Milroe, who broke off that one just huge run last week against Arkansas, that was, by the way, that was a really impressive run. It wasn't just about the yardage; it's just you could tell, like, okay, like this guy has the awareness to make a play like that, and to beat a defense the way that he did. And again, like I said, that's Arkansas's defense, which has absolutely been struggling. I feel like A&M's is better, but when you look at it, you mentioned the kind of rushing defense and those kind of things. Knowing what Gibbs can do, that's another one where it's just I think that Alabama, we know if Milroe's under center, they're not going to be game planning passing wise the same as they would if Bryce Young was under center. And I think that will put themselves in a position for a lot of other, kind of rushing scenarios where they will try to pound the ball, knowing that that is something they are very good at. And like you said, it is kind of it's wild to think about just in terms of game planning from A&M's standpoint on defense, but you're still presented with a lot of different issues in trying to stop this Alabama offense, even without Bryce Young. Even if we know there are some obvious differences there in terms of not having him on the field versus having him on the field.
Yeah, now the other side of that coin is, does A&M just say we dare you to beat us in the passing game?
Well, that's what I would think. I
Yeah,
mean, why would you not, right? So,
yeah.
yeah.
Load
So,
the box and just
and by the way,
But
it's
that'll be
Alabama has no
interesting.
shortage. Alabama has no shortage of playmakers in the passing game either. It's just a matter of
Yeah.
can it be as efficient, right? So, yeah.
Well, and Bama's getting a little healthier there at receiver, it seems like, too.
Yeah.
So, okay, before we talk about the other side of the ball, big games coming up in the league this week. To add extra excitement, we are making picks in the Stakes app. That is STAKES. Want to hear from you guys if you agree or disagree on our takes. So go to playwithstakes.com/14. Sign up, place your predictions. If you're for us or against us, use the invite code Southeastern14. When you sign up, you'll get a double welcome bonus. Free to join, free to play. You can win stuff. What's not like? Have fun. Rub our nose in it if we get something wrong and you get it right. Join Stakes. Help our sponsor. Help everybody have some fun. Thank us later. Okay. When A&M has got the ball, it has been ugly. A&M averaging 21.8 points a game. Alabama giving up, 11.2. Quarterback change, I think, last week towards the end of the game. I don't think they can throw. Devin Achane is their weapon. Alabama's got some speed, though. I just think A&M is going to have a brutal game offensively against Alabama.
Yeah, I mean, look, as we said, we go off of what we've seen, and the numbers are what they are. A&M, I think, Chris, 97, 98 in rushing yards per game, 101 in passing yards per game, 104 in total yards, 109 in points scored. I mean, that's not ideal playing a team like Alabama, who defensively, again, what you're going up against. They rank fifth in total yards, fifth in pass defense, fifth in points scored or points allowed, 11th rushing defense. I mean, it's just, I can't make up anything in terms of trying to figure out exactly how A&M is able to score points here, other than the fact that I think that one thing I think A&M can do is they're going to have to force some turnovers, right? Like their defense is going to have to help their offense, and I think that's what it comes down to. And that's going to be we're going to say the same thing about A&M the rest of the season probably is their defense is going to have to give them those chances. Which, by the way, like we said, they were set up with some opportunities last week. It's just that you have to be able to convert on those, and they didn't do that last week against Mississippi State. And I think that's where this becomes such a big challenge. Is you want to talk about if you're A&M and you're saying we're going to make you beat us in the passing game, Alabama. If you're Alabama, you're looking on that saying the exact same thing, saying we know that you want to get the ball to Devin Achane, and we're going to do everything we can to make sure we take away what he can do running the ball, and we're going to make you beat us through the air. If they make them do that, that is where, again, I think, look, I say this, but like, I don't think that Max Johnson is a bad quarterback. I just think that the way their offense is structured in terms of the limitations that they have in place now to this point, I don't see a lot of, some of those kind of big time. I mean, he made some big plays last week. He's going to be someone obviously they're going to lean on moving forward in the passing game. But to me, it's still Devin Achane's got to touch the ball 25 plus times in this game. Because he is the guy that gives you the best chance to win offensively. But the problem is Alabama knows that, and I'm very curious to see if A&M can get any positive momentum, and that's where I think the defense plays such a huge role because they're going to have to set them up a couple times with some good field position. I think because sustaining those long drives against Alabama, Chris, just a hard thing to do. I think for this offense.
Okay, we're doing this Monday morning. Over under on this 53.5, Alabama a 23.5 point favorite. That implies a final score of something along the lines of 38-15 Alabama. I'm not sure A&M can score 15 points. How many is Alabama scores the question? I think that A&M's defense is probably better than the 42 it gave up a week ago. This seems like a take the under game to me. Although there is that notion that Nick Saban might want to rub Jimbo Fisher's nose in it a little bit, which makes the over maybe a little tantalizing. But then it's back to can A&M score more than a field goal or two? So I don't know. You tell me.
Can have fun with a lot of the narratives in this game in terms of if you're making bets, you don't want to let those narratives play too much into it. But if you just look at the trends, which I keep coming to here from covers, the overs 4-0 in the last 4 meetings between these two teams. The over 5-1 in Texas A&M's last 6 games in October. So I don't know if you have anything to that. Against the spread, Chris, which Texas A&M 1-5 against the spread in their last 6 road games. So that's not ideal. Meanwhile, Alabama's been pretty good in this month in October against the spread. So that's something else to consider. Here's the deal, right? Alabama has the advantage statistically. Points per game, total offense, total defense, red zone efficiency, kicking. The only thing Alabama does not have the edge on here in terms of those bigger categories is penalties. And can we really go into a game saying A&M's just got to force some penalties? And it's those kind of like those
I
are the
think
kind
Nick
of
Saban is going to have their attention this week.
And that's what I mean is like when you're thinking about those kind of things that could determine this game, it's hard to pick the other side in this one. So, yeah, I mean, clearly I'm going to pick Alabama to win this game. I told you I thought the starting line may be around 25. It started at 24. The over-under is kind of fascinating, though, and I think that's one I'm curious to see what everyone else thinks on this one because if you read it, and look, it's probably a little different if Bryce Young's in there, right? And you're probably saying, well, Alabama may come out and score 70 here. But I think A&M's defense, I know they gave up points last week, but I still think there's some things they can do defensively that will give them a chance to keep some of these games somewhat close, maybe if their offense is kind of sputtering a little bit. But this is one where it's hard to predict that, I think, against this Alabama team.
We will have our Wednesday Night Live show. We'll talk a little bit more about this one, maybe have some clarity on Bryce Young's injury situation. We're previewing every game this week in the SEC. We're previewing every game in the SEC this year. Best way to catch all those is to hit that subscribe button. So do that. Thanks for watching. Thanks to Stakes. We'll see you again soon.